Repellent. Degrading and a compound of vulgar depravity. Harsh words that have been shot at Wuthering Heights since the 1800s, and the new adaptation is no exception to criticism. Pantomime performances, shallow fanfiction, whitewashed casting. But could the mirrored outrage between then and now be a genius intention by Emily Brontë, rather than coincidence? Director Emily Fennell definitely seems to suggest that's the case anyway.
If I can make anything that makes people connect, even if they hate it, even if they connect in their loathing of my work and me, that's something.
Currently, the film is sitting at a 70% score on Rotten Tomatoes and a 60 on Metacritic. But those numbers hide just how deeply divided the audience is. On one side, you have The Telegraph, which gave it 5 stars and called it a barbed wire fever dream. They argue that the film's maximalist style, the skin-shaded wallpaper, and the heavy, erotic atmosphere actually captures the oozy, bruised passion of the book, better than a dry traditional period piece ever could. But on the other side, the backlash is fierce. Critics from IGN and The Guardian have been much harsher, calling the film shallow fanfiction. The Independent even gave it 1 single star and labelled it astonishingly bad, and that Elordi and Robbie's performances were pushed to the border of pantomime. Bit harsh. Another Reddit user summed it up simply by saying, "I for one am not wuthering for these heights." Fair. But the main point of people's contention is the casting of Jacob Elordi. If you look at the history of film adaptations, from the black and white classics to the big budget versions of the 90s, Heathcliff is almost always portrayed by a brooding, white, aristocratic looking man. But if you return to the actual words Emily Brontë wrote, she provides a trail of clues that he might actually be black or brown. Brontë repeatedly describes Heathcliff as dark-skinned in appearance, with black hair and black eyes, and characters in the novel refer to him as Gypsy. But the most vital clue is his origin story. Mr. Earnshaw finds the child starving on the streets of Liverpool and brings him home to the moors. To a modern reader, Liverpool is just another city. But in the 1770s, the era in which the book is set, Liverpool was one of the largest and most active slave trading ports in the world. Scholars in the Brontë Parsonage Museum have long suggested that Heathcliff was likely intended to be a person of colour, perhaps of black African descent or even South Asian. As in the text, other characters actually use the term Lascar as a racially charged insult towards him, which was often used for South Asian sailors. If Heathcliff is black or brown, the abuse he suffers from the Earnshaw family isn't just sibling rivalry or simple classism, it's virulent racism. When he is treated like a servant and denied an education, it's because he is viewed as an other. If we accept Heathcliff as racially targeted, his later revenge isn't just the actions of a mean man, it becomes a tragic, violent response to a society that never gave him a chance to be anything else. By casting a white person as a character described in the book as dark-skinned, has people arguing that the film sanitizes the brutality and the specific trauma of the original story, losing the gothic soul of the book. Some have even suggested that by ignoring Heathcliff's ethnic ambiguity, it risks turning a story about racial trauma and systemic rejection into a much simpler, prettier story about a toxic rich boy. IGN's review even stating that Jacob Elordi's performance recalls his Euphoria character Nate more than Bronte's antagonistic anti-hero. There's also more than race driving the book. Social class and wealth is equally as important. And to be fair, director Emily Fennell herself explained that she is not making a replica of the book, but rather a version that she remembered reading, or a version where she wanted certain things to happen, which is why the film title is cleverly labelled in quotation marks.
I don't know, make a movie that made me feel the way the book made me feel, and so therefore it just felt right to say it's Wuthering Heights. And it isn't.
There have been many fan cast alternatives being shared on the internet, including Riz Ahmed, Michael B. Jordan, and Dev Patel. However, Elordi as Heathcliff isn't the only casting people seem to be unhappy about, as others have also criticised the decision to cast Margot Robbie as Kathy, with one person saying, "I'm more concerned with Margot Robbie being cast as Kathy. Wasn't she supposed to have a wildness to her? I didn't imagine her to be blonde and in her 30s. Ouch." Speaking of wild characters, there's a dark, widely unknown truth surrounding the original book that almost got Wuthering Heights banned completely. In 1847, Emily Brontë published the novel under the pseudonym Ellis Bell. In Victorian England, a woman writing a story this savage would have been social suicide. But even under a male name, the public was absolutely horrified. They discouraged libraries and bookstores from stocking it because it broke the fundamental unspoken rule of Victorian literature, the necessity of a moral compass. In the 19th century, novels were expected to be moral guides for the reader. The good characters were supposed to be rewarded with marriage and status, while the bad characters were punished by the law or divine intervention. Death. Even Jane Eyre, written by Emily's own sister, Charlotte Brontë, still ends happily ever after. Jane protects her principles and she is rewarded with a high-status marriage and independent wealth. Or look at Charles Dickens' Oliver Twist. Oliver is rewarded with a massive inheritance while the villainous Bill Sikes is met with a violent accidental death. But Brontë, the woman she was, said "F that." She gave us Catherine Earnshaw, a heroine who was manipulative, arrogant, and described by many as loathsome. And she also gave us Heathcliff, a man who spends his entire life systematically destroying two families out of pure, unadulterated spite. One thing that is fair to say is that Emily Brontë didn't write a safe story. She wrote a masterpiece about how a society that rejects and others a human being will eventually create its own monster. Whether you love the new film's fever dream energy or find the casting a betrayal of the text, the controversy itself proves that this story is still doing what it was meant to. It is making us uncomfortable, which is exactly what Fennell wanted. And to give you my own thoughts on it, I've seen the movie, and considering I'm a 34-year-old white male, I'd say the story of Wuthering Heights isn't necessarily targeted for me. But either way, I really enjoyed it. Emerald Fennell's interpretation is bold, invigorating, and stylish, and it hits all the marks it needs to. Margot and Jacob are exceptional, and their chemistry really brings to life two of the most mysterious and iconic characters in literature history. I'd say it's definitely worth a trip to the cinema to watch it, and if you go in thinking it's an interpretation rather than a straight up adaptation, then you'll have a great time. But what do you think? Let us know in the comments below, and for more videos like this one, make sure you subscribe to VT.